Welcome to all of you. My name is Eduard van der Haas. I'm a Market Intelligence Program Manager at CBI, and I will be your host for today's webinar on EU regulations and its impacts on the essential oils market. A few general and practical remarks to start with. Please note that we cannot hear or see you. You still though have the possibility to interact with us throughout the questions tab that you will see on your screen, and we will consult these questions and answer a selection of them at the end of the session. You will also be able to look back and share this webinar as it will be published shortly on our website. And please also don't forget to complete our short survey at the end of the webinar in order for us to gather your feedback on this session. And lastly, if you have any audio or technical problems during this session, we advise you to switch to the phone call modus to solve the problem. Thank you. So main topic of today will be the EU regulations and its impacts on the essential oils markets. And therefore, I would like to give a warm welcome to our two presenters and experts of today, Andrew Jones and Andrei Mitov. Andrew Jones is a former buyer of The Body Shop International, the British cosmetics, skincare and perfume retail giant. He has almost 30 years of experience in the cosmetics industry. He developed a supply chain for the community fair trade program when he was working for The Body Shop. And today he's the director of Fair Venture, a consultancy company. He has been advising companies from Asia, from Africa and Latin America for many years in the field of cosmetic ingredient supply chains, helping them to succeed on the European markets. And he will exchange views today with our second presenter, Andrei Mitov. Andrei Mitov is the owner of the Bulgarian company Admes. He has been working in the European essential oils industry for more than 25 years. He's today the owner of an influential wholesale supplier of essential oils. He's both active on conventional and organic certified products, like for instance, lavender, rose, hyssop, dill, St. John's wort, and melissa. He is also since last year the new president of the EFEO, the European Federation of Essential Oils, after several years of experience as a member of the EFEO board. And he is also a member of the board of the Bulgarian Association of Essential Oils. So being active on both business and federation side, it gives them a very strong credibility and knowledge of regulation and of course the European market of essential oils. Thank you. Going through today's agenda, we will start with a short introduction of CBI and then quickly move on to our main topic of today, starting with the current and upcoming developments on the European legislation, and then go through the main tips and recommendations that we can give you for essential oil producers. And the last 15 minutes of the session, we will give you the possibility to go to the questions, of course, and we expect to finish in 1 hour and 15 minutes around 4:15 Central European time. Thank you. So starting with a short presentation of our organization, CBI. CBI stands for the promotion of imports from developing countries. We are part of the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, EFEO. Our work is funded and commissioned by the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you. So CBI was established by the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the early 1970s. That means that we have more than 50 years of experience in contributing to local sustainable and economic development through exports. We mainly focus ourselves on SMEs to build sustainable trade relationships with European buyers. And our main mission is to support this transition towards inclusive and sustainable economies. We therefore contribute directly to several sustainable development goals, such as decent work and economic growth. We also pay special attention to women and youth in SMEs. We stimulate sustainable production and trade, and we also encourage partnerships for the goals. Thank you. Looking at our geographical reach, as you can see on your screen, we are mainly focused on regions such as North, West, and East Africa, as well as on projects in the Middle East, and also in several specific Asian countries. We have a total of 24 focus countries where we can start concrete projects. Thank you. In terms of knowledge and activity, we cover a large range of sectors, 13 sectors in total, based on dynamic and promising fields and industries. So as you can see, from fresh fruits and vegetables to tourism, from apparel to outsourcing, but also cacao, herbs and spices. And of course, the most relevant for you, natural ingredients for cosmetics, but also natural ingredients for health products and food additives. Thank you. Our projects rely on several support solutions for SMEs and business support organizations, such as, for instance, helping you exhibit at leading European trade fairs, but also through our export coaching programs with individual training, coaching activities on several and different levels, like marketing, market entry, export development. You'll see a few examples of current 4-year export projects on the right side of your screen, like the export projects we did for natural ingredients from Indonesia, that we did from 2019 to 2023, where essential oils had an important contribution. And another example is the current project in Kenya on the topic of women empowerment in the cosmetics sector also, which is ongoing until 2026. Thank you. In terms of partners, we work with a large base of partners. Our focus group is made of SME exporters, but we also work a lot with BSOs, governments and sector organizations, NGOs, international organizations, and more locally in Europe with European importers, of course. Our main resource is though market intelligence, and this market intelligence gives you easy access and free of charge studies on our website. We try to give you the most practical answers to questions like which European countries offer the most opportunities. And on the right side of your screen, you will see our main page dedicated to natural ingredients for cosmetics, with a selection of studies for each subsector. So we not only offer general overviews of the demand, the trends, but also the opportunities and specific product-related studies, like for instance, avocado oil, baobab oil, moringa, mango, palm oil, shea butter, and of course, essential oils. So please do not hesitate to visit our website to find the info that suits you the best. Thank you. To finish this general introduction of CBI, please keep in mind that you also have access to our social media canals for regular updates. You can use our LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter page. And don't hesitate also to subscribe to our newsletter to stay posted on our latest projects and study updates on natural ingredients for cosmetics. And now it's time to move on to our two presenters of today, Andrew and Andre. Andrew, I think you want to start with a poll to get to know our audience better. I see that the amount of attendees is still growing. We have 147 attendees at the moment, which is a very good amount for a webinar like this. So welcome, Andrew, and I'll leave you the floor. And of course, I'll leave the floor to Andre for the concrete presentation. Can you put your microphone on, Andrew? Andrew? We cannot hear you at the moment.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Great.
Good.
Welcome,
Okay, great.
Andrew.
Thanks. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, first
No
of all,
problem.
thank you to you all for being here this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And it's great that you're here. And thank you for the introduction, Edward. And I'm very happy that that Andre, the president of the EFEO, is also here with us today. So as mentioned by Edward, we'd like to start off with a couple of polls to get to know you a little bit more. So I've got two questions, as you can see on the screen. The first question is, what is your role in the supply chain? And there are four possible answers. And in a moment, the poll will activate and you can select one of those four possible answers. And then we'll see the results on the screen. And then there'll be a second question, which will follow shortly after this first poll. So please have a look at the questions, whether you are a producer or exporter of essential oils and you're based outside Europe, whether you're an importer or a producer and you're based in Europe, or whether you're a business support organization, or whether you're none of the above. Just to get an idea of who's in the audience today with us. I can see the responses are coming in. 46% of the audience are producers or exporters based outside of Europe. 6% are based inside Europe. 27% are business support organizations, and 21% are not any of those other categories, but all thank you all for being here to listen to our webinar. Okay, that's really useful to know. So the majority of you are producers and exporters or exporters of essential oils, and you're based outside the European Union. And that's exactly the target audience that we're looking for today. Thanks for being here, all of you. And there's information for everybody, really. There's also for whether you're inside Europe or whether you're a BSO or none of the above, there'll be something here for you. Now, on to the second question, please, Joris. So the second question is, what is about your participation in the industry? Are you so there are four questions. Are you a member of the EFEO or a member of IFEAT? Are you a member of another national or international association for essential oils? Or none of the above, but you are in the industry? Or none of the above, and you're not involved with the industry? So please choose one of those answers. I can see that it's coming in. So very good. Keep those answers coming in, please. 80% have voted so far. And we are 156 in the room. Okay, so yeah, looking very good. Okay, 82% have voted now. Thank you. 84% now. Can we just check that everyone's got their mic off who doesn't need to be speaking, please, Edward?
I can hear you well. Thank you.
Yeah, but there's some of the background noise as well going on. I don't know. So now we're at 83%. I think probably that's if anyone else would like to respond to the poll, you've got a few seconds more. Okay, so 84%. If we can get to 85, then we'll share the results of the poll. There we go. Okay, poll closed. Great. So, but the results are, so 15% of you are members of EFEO and or IFEAT. 19% are a member of another national or international association for essential oils. 46% of the audience are in neither of those categories, but they are involved with the essential oil industry. And 21% are not in those industries, and they're not involved directly with the essential oil industry. That's really, really interesting results. One of the messages we've got today is about with the changes that are happening to be really involved in the industry. So to be a member of your local association or an international association. So but that's really great to get that profile. Thank you very much for taking part in those polls. Great. So as also was mentioned by Edward, we're very pleased to have here with us today Andrei Mitov, who is the president of EFEO. And we're going to start off with a few words, a few thoughts from Andrei in relation to this topic about the upcoming regulatory changes that might affect essential oils in Europe. So I'm now going to pass over to Andrei, and welcome, Andrei.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to attend this webinar, and thank you for the opportunity to present our activity and to inform for those who are not informed that we exist. You see on the presentation there are the logos of EFEO together with our EFEO, European Federation of Essential Oils logo. This is why, because in the last years we tried to cooperate as much as possible to align positions, of course, together with other industry associations, but being the European and the global essential oil associations as per the scope of activity. That's why I mentioned with priority EFEAT together with us, but our target is to align positions with different industry associations which find common topics of interest with us, and the national association as well. So you will hear and see from time to time the name of EFEAT together with EFEO as well. A few words about our federation. The European Federation of Essential Oils is already with more than 20 years of history, established in 2002 by a few of my older colleagues who are the founding members. Now, 23 years later, we have already more than 100 companies who are direct members. We have 9 national associations and another more than 100 other companies who are indirect members through the national associations. With the time, in fact, EFEO is a non-profit organization. We are, in addition to our personal business or essential job, we are volunteers in this association. Since last year, I took the presidency rotation with 2 years term. In the board of EFEO, we are about 15 colleagues from different companies. The federation main aim is to represent the producers and traders of essential oils in Europe, not only of course, but mainly from Europe. This is in fact the beginning of the supply chain, which is the focus of our activity. We protect and promote the interest and defend their products at the relevant national, European, international level in front of the same level authorities. We are proud to be recognized party in the dialogue with the European institutions and to be highly reliable and esteemed counterpart in the supply chain, trying to be adequate for all topics related to the trade and production of the essential oils. If you want to see some more details of us, you are welcome to visit our website, when you can have our contact details, information about the activity, the structure, and everything. It's quite big. Of course, there is this specific that more information, more detailed information is available for members, but you can find out also how you can become a member of us. The same is valid for our partner EFEO, and their website. You can find out similar information as well. Some of the current activities of EFEO I would like to highlight is on the advocacy side. We are organizing since last 2-3 years regular visits to the European Parliament during their plenary sessions. Last 2 or 3 years we organized events together with in combination with our regular board meetings. We try to combine and prepare in advance and during the plenary sessions to have meetings with influential and key members of the European Parliament from the different production countries. Our goal is to create a network of reliable contacts and to raise awareness and to ask them to be able to ask for support and to make our voice of the industry to be heard during the discussions and the preparation of the legal text and different legislation proposals. From other side, our colleagues participate in different European Union working groups in the European Commission during the discussions of the legal text prepared for voting in the Parliament. Our colleagues from technical committee or experts from the industry are actively involved in this work, trying to protect the maximum the interest of the essential oil industry in these legislation initiatives. At next level, we are trying to mobilize local politics from our countries, experts from the industry or from different national administrations, like ministries, who are engaged to participate also in this legislative process. We inform them about the interest of the industry or potential negative effects some proposals might have, and ask them to act in a defense of interest of our members and our business. The current topics which are in our focus are the COP revision, the REACH revision, the classification of tea tree oil, the oils containing paracement, allergens, the essential use concept, and so on. You can see some details in the next slides. And all these activities we rely very much on our partner of EFEO in advocacy, in scientific work, in the contribution from members in order to make all the industry sounds in one voice, to look quite reliable to the politics, and to look solid also and reliable to our members. Some of the current challenges we face nowadays is related with you have heard about the Green Deal of Europe and initiatives called Chemical Strategy for Sustainability. It resulted in proposed revisions of several regulations, and some of them affect even not intended, especially, and not focused especially on the essential oils, but we face this so-called collateral effect on the essential oils. One of them is the CLP. Its revision started a few years ago, and during these years our efforts and advocacy work resulted in granted derogation, which was more on politically based than scientific so far, and that's why we got it subject justification in 5 years period, and you will see a bit more information on some of the next slides about the REACH revision, which is coming on the table by end of this year. It's another topic which require a very strong attention from our side. The classification of tea tree oil and paracyanine, it's a hard and ongoing work since years, and our colleagues from the technical committee of EFEO, scientific people from EFEO, and in the industry in general are actively involved, and they are participating in the work of the relative working groups in the European administration, trying to win favorable classification and to avoid further restrictions which is of these oils, which if happens will be a bad precedent, and how to say it will lead to a problem with next oils and compounds. The essential use concept is another thing which require to be considered and to see if we can use it to win some derogation. It will be a kind of topic of our EFEO annual general meeting later this year in Paris. During the presentation in the next slides, and Andrew will inform you in details about some of these challenges. So Andrew, I pass to you again.
Great. Thank you, Andre, for that introduction. Yes, as Andre has mentioned, so now we'll go to a little bit more detail in some of those issues that Andre has mentioned. Not in huge scientific detail, and if there are any very highly specific scientific questions, we may be able to answer them after the presentation, perhaps not during. But I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about all of those, and particularly about the impact on the essential oil industry. But first, I am going to start with an introduction about the importance of essential oils in global trade. So for those of you who are not directly involved in industry, this is also useful and relevant for you. So essential oils are a global commodity, and they're actually critical in global trade, and they are a fundamental part of many industries, for example, especially cosmetics, the wellness industry, foods. For example, in the cosmetics industry, we all know about the importance of fragrance. It's a key component. The first thing that we always do when opening a bottle or a tub of cosmetic cream is to open it and smell it, and we imagine the performance is related to how well something smells. So it's very important. And for aromatherapy, well, the key to the importance of essential oils is in the name, yeah, aromatherapy. So these are all important uses for essential oils. The market is, it's very highly valuable. I've got some data to show you later on, but we're looking at, this is a multi-billion euro market at the raw material end, let alone at the retail end. So essential oils are natural products. They're complex substances that consist of chemicals that are naturally produced by the plant in most cases, and they're not a single chemical. They're not put together in a laboratory. The essential oils are as they come out of the distillation process that extracts the molecules to produce the whole essential oil. And of course, they have considerable historical, cultural, and socio-economic value that goes back, thousands of years. And for many developing countries, essential oils are a key export, sustaining thousands of smallholder farmers and producers. And they rely on the international markets for their livelihood. And so therefore, it's crucial that, the roles of associations like Andre's are there to protect and defend these industries, and therefore protecting and defending livelihood. But as you've clearly now picked up, there are regulatory risks coming up. Upcoming regulations could impact market access. They could impact the benefits derived from the essential oil industry. There is increasing costs of compliance, and possibly, which also limits the trade opportunities. So looking at some of the data, then we've got, well, at a retail level, they estimate that the value is 10 billion euros at 2023. And what's interesting really is also the growth rate. I mean, 8% is significant. It's much higher than the growth rate of the overall cosmetics industry, which is suggesting that people are putting more essential oils in cosmetics, or they're using more in aromatherapy and wellness, because it's also aligned to the trends about natural ingredients. Major importers, then, these three regions depend heavily on the areas of the world that produce the essential oils, because production of essential oils is very much geographic dependent. You can't grow essential oils everywhere. You have to, where you actually are located will often be the leading factor in how or where a essential oil plant can grow. The other important trend is about sustainability and the growing demand for organic and sustainable essential oils. And this is now being combined with increasing legislative requirements for sustainability. So this is in effect raising the level playing field now beyond just voluntary choices about being sustainable. Now there are legal frameworks also to follow. So the future is optimistic for essential oils. It's growing rapidly. There's an increase in sustainability. It provides benefits to many hundreds of thousands of producers around the world. So on that side, it's looking promising. But on the other side, now there are increasing regulations to navigate and also to introduce sustainability requirements to remain competitive and profitable. Some data for you. So this is the data of all essential oils. So I've used the ITC trade map for this. I'm looking at the category 3301 as the code for all essential oils. And we can see then that here, total trade exports from the world in 2023 was 5.6 billion US dollars. That's around 5.3 billion euros in total exports. And as you can see from the other slide, at the other end of the chain, at the retail end, that converts into something approximately like 10 billion US dollars. The most important exporting country in 2023 was India, nearly 1 billion US dollars, 908 million US dollars, followed them by the US, Brazil, France, Germany, China, Mexico, Italy, UK, and Indonesia. So only 4 countries in that list are from Europe, and the rest are from all over the world. And so Indonesia there at number 10 is a very important producer of essential oils, coming in at 175 million US dollars. And then when I present that data as a pie chart, just to see the percentages, you can see that all of these countries added together account for about 70% of all essential oil exports in the world, with India at 16, USA at 13, etc., etc. So 10 countries dominate in terms of production the essential oil industry. So looking at just a little more detail about the countries, we've got India. Now, India is very famous for mint oils, accounting for around 80% of world supply. Brazil is very famous for citrus oils, and China, eucalyptus oils. And then, yes, Indonesia, a very important producer of patchouli oil, supplying more than 80% of the world's demand from Indonesia. So these are the top 4 producing countries. If we look at from a CBI point of view, where CBI works, in these countries, it's a bit small, but if you can see that, these are on the left-hand side, some of the essential oils that are available from some of the countries where CBI has a focus. You saw the map there from Edward, where CBI has its focus. But you can see a lot of countries here are like Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and then in Africa, Ethiopia, Sudan, Kenya, Uganda as well, for where CBI operates. And you can see the types of oil that they produce. At a whole, again, looking at that 3301 code for Africa, the major exporting country is South Africa, followed by Egypt, then Madagascar, Morocco, and Tunisia. And putting it into perspective, so you can see there on the graph that South Africa exports in 2023 were approximately 50 million US dollars, and that's the most important country in 2023. Where are these countries selling to? Well, the main European importers are companies that are based in France, the UK, Germany, and Spain. And a bit more detail further down, drilling down a bit more into the producing countries in Africa. You've got South Africa. Well, it's famous for tea tree. Now, we already heard from Andre about tea tree on the radar. Yeah, eucalyptus and buku oils. Egypt, jasmine, geranium, chamomile oils. Madagascar, famous for clove, clove bud, clove leaf. Ylang ylang and vetiver. Morocco is a major exporter of rosemary, rose, absolute, and cedarwood oils. And then finally, Tunisia, producing neroli, jasmine, rosemary, and also geranium. So this is it's a big range of essential oils, and some of these are already caught up in some of the changes that are coming up with the European regulations. So to go now into a little bit more detail about the key upcoming European regulations, and especially the changes that are affecting the essential oils. I'm going to highlight 5 in a little bit more detail. The first one we'll look at is the updated fragrance allergens. So fragrance allergens require labeling on a cosmetic product, for example, if the concentration exceeds a certain maximum level. And so that number has increased significantly. Then, as was mentioned also by Andre, the way that the European Union is now classifying risk, or hazard, it's looking at a hazard-based, what's called hazard-based classification, as opposed to what has been traditionally used, which is a risk-based assessment evaluation. And then MOX, well, MOX stands for more than one constituent substance. So, as we've already heard, these essential oils are beautiful products, and they naturally consist of many, many, many different substances that are produced by the plant. And there are stricter controls coming in due to the depending on how the individual components are assessed for their hazard. And then, as mentioned by Andre, the essential use concept, which we'll come on to in a little bit more detail. And then finally, the tea tree oil reclassification, where the European Chemicals Agency, ECHA, is proposing to label tea tree as a reproductive toxin, which would lead it being probably not allowed to be used in cosmetic products, which obviously would have a major impact on all producers of tea tree oil. So then, the updated EU fragrance allergen requirements. So here, the European Union has significantly expanded its fragrance allergen regulations in the past 24 months, introducing stricter labeling requirements for fragrance allergens in cosmetics and personal care. So previously, there were only 26 on the list, and now there are more than 80. And when you look at the legislation, there's a link in below, you can access it when you get the presentation. One of the key changes is that there is now an inclusion of whole essential oils in the list, not only the individual substances that are known for fragrance allergens. So, for example, citrus oils, lavender, patchouli from Indonesia, sandalwood, ylang-ylang, oak moss. So these also now require labeling when used above a specific concentration threshold. So that is a key change, which will have an impact if a manufacturer wants to keep the size of their label small, doesn't want to have so much information on the label, they will be reducing the quantity so that they don't have to comment on that content in the product. And the deadline for this is that companies like manufacturers in Europe need to comply with the new labeling rules by 2026. So understanding these rules is critical, because it's important that producers also are aware of the upcoming changes, make changes to their strategy, look for other buyers in other parts of the world, for example. But it's key to understand these changes that are upcoming. And there is the link. The regulation is called 2023/1545, dated the 26th of July 2023. And in there you can find all of the tables and all of the substances that fall under the fragrance allergen regulation. So the next topic is the shift to hazard-based classification, and how this may impact essential oils. So what is happening is that the European Union is moving from a risk-based, which looks at the hazard of a substance and its exposure, to hazard-only assessment. So what does that mean? That Well, a risk-based assessment considers real-world exposure risks, whereas hazard-based rules do not. So many essential oils might now be classified as hazardous and therefore see limitations or restrictions on their use, whereas in the past, the risk was manageable by understanding the exposure in the real world to the essential oil. And a simple example here is the example of water. So from a hazard point of view, water is inherently dangerous. It's toxic if you drink it in excess, and you can drown in it. Whereas under a risk-based assessment, water is hazardous depending on the exposure. If you drink a glass of water or a moderate quantity of water, you won't suffer the toxic effects, diluting your electrolytes and all of that. If you know how to swim or you use safety gear when you're diving, you are less likely to have an accident or something more serious. So that's how hazard versus risk can be simply described. And so if we move to more hazardous situations, like for example, the case of tea tree oil is also now subject to a hazard-based assessment, then it threatens the use or the restriction of use of that essential oil. So the problem from the essential oil side, industry side, is that it's a flawed approach because it doesn't take account of real-world safety. It ignores the safe historical use. Essential oils have been used safely for centuries in cosmetics, foods, and medicine. We know how to use essential oils. We know what the risks are. And so it risks creating a problem because they're not single chemicals. These are multi-component substances naturally produced, and so there's it kind of misclassifies them. It disregards real-world exposure. So we know how to manage the concentration, but hazard-based rules do not look at that. And therefore, if this comes into effect after the derogation that has been allowed, then this could lead to and may have serious consequences, which is why it's great that you are all here today to hear these developments and then to join with us in challenging these changes that are taking place at the European Union level. So similar situation to the hazard-based analysis is MOX. This is the more than one constituent substances that are challenging. They create a challenge because they are potentially more complex to assess the safety of them. But what it means is that there's, instead of being assessed as a whole substance, the individual chemical constituents are now evaluated separately for their potential hazards. And of course, while these goals of the regulations are ultimately well intended to benefit and improve the health and safety of European consumers, essential oils get caught up in this, in the very broad scope of the legislation. The essential oils get caught up. And so while these are well intended to protect us all, essential oils are at risk because they get caught up in it as well. So there's more information there, but they're based on their individual substance. And for example, here's an example of rose oil contains a substance called methyl eugenol. Now, methyl eugenol is classified as hazardous, so that may create a problem for producers of rose oil, even if the whole oil has no risk. Now, as Andre mentioned, the essential oil industry right now has an exception or a derogation from these updates to the CLP, the Classification, Labeling and Packaging regulations, and the European Commission has to produce a report within 5 years, which actually is 2029 now, to demonstrate that a whole essential oil doesn't behave like the sum of its components, that it's actually a different substance, and it shouldn't be measured according to the individual components that are in it. So there is a long-term risk to the industry beyond the 5 years. The 5 years provides a bit of a breathing space, but beyond that, the work now is needed to be carried out to protect essential oils. Under this CRP revision, we've got also new hazard classes. So these quite a detailed bit here, but for example, you've got categories like, you may have heard of these endocrine disruptors. You've got persistent, bioaccumulative and toxic, or very persistent and very bioaccumulative, or persistent mobile, or very persistent and very mobile. These may have significant implications for essential oils, because going back to the hazard analysis, essential oils may contain trace components of some of these substances, and as a result, substances like clove oil, rose, ginger may be subject to restriction, even though the traditional use may have demonstrated safety. So, yeah, just to say one point, say that again, that the new rules ignore the traditional risk-based safety assessments, treating natural substances like individual or synthetic chemicals. So there is risk. Now, this is already in operation, but essential oils do have the derogation until 2029. Well, organizations like EFEO and EFEAT and others are working hard on the science aspect of it, as well as the advocacy with the European Union. The essential use concept. This is a new European Union policy that again may restrict the use of essential oils. So what is the essential use concept? Well, it's a new framework to restrict chemicals to essential applications only. Again, well, this is a very well-meaning and understandable for the most dangerous chemicals. Essential oils may unintentionally fall within the scope of this essential use concept. So what is it? So the use of a most harmful substance is essential, or thereby permitted, for society if the use is necessary for health and safety, or is critical for the functioning of society, and there are no acceptable alternatives. So what is not clear is, where do essential oils fit into this concept of essential use? And we heard Andre mention that one of the subjects of their conference coming up is this very subject. So highlighting therefore the importance of it to the essential oil industry. So, essential oils that are used in cosmetics, wellness and aromatherapy, well, what if they don't qualify as essential? So that's a key area to look at, and to be clear about and challenge, in fact, if it's going to risk the use of essential oils or provide a threat, especially if something else may be used instead of the naturally produced essential oil. It creates uncertainty. About REACH, this is undergoing a revision, and there are stricter rules on compliance, which will increase the financial burden on SMEs, particularly in this case, the European SMEs, who are under an obligation to follow the REACH regulation. The essential oils that are produced by small-scale farmers and cooperatives in developing countries, for those types of company, and many of you in the audience here REACH is not obligatory for non-EU businesses. However, there are commercial advantages if a non-EU business registers itself under the REACH principles and REACH processes. There are commercial advantages, but it's still an expensive process, and there are high costs. But if the compliance rules, like requiring more data and more testing, then the costs go up, which will affect the competitiveness of SMEs in particular, and provides a threat to small-scale companies, especially in Europe. So it's another area where there's a lot of advocacy now ongoing to ensure that these regulatory frameworks do not disproportionately harm small producers, but at the same time, of course, maintaining safety standards. And then the final one to look at in a bit more detail is the tea tree oil reclassification. And the concern is that will this set a precedent for the future? So the European Chemicals Agency's proposal is that tea tree oil is classified as a reproductive toxin. There are a lot of steps in the process, and it's an ongoing discussion, and there are different states of completion. So, but what I've got right now is that it's still at the proposal level, but the documents say it's going to be classified as a reproductive toxin. And it's done originally because it was tested for use as a pesticide, and then those tests also look at hazard-based types assessment, including ingestion of tea tree in animals, and that is where the reproductive toxin concern has arisen, or in the overall assessment anyway. And so there is a potential ban, and if it reclassified as a reproductive toxin, then it could be banned from use in cosmetics, and that would have a serious impact in global trade. Edward mentioned that I used to work at the Body Shop many years ago, but many years ago we were a major user of tea tree oil. There was a very famous little green bottle that we prepared, which is diluted tea tree oil. It was a best-selling line for the Body Shop. So
sorry to interrupt you, Andrew. Before
yes.
you move on to the consequences in the European market,
yes,
it's now 3:59. I see that we have a few first questions coming in, not a lot.
Okay.
So it's also a quick reminder for our audience that they have the possibility to ask us questions in the questions tab, both general questions as more practical and specific questions. The questions that we cannot respond to will be treated afterwards. So don't hesitate to give you your thoughts or questions in that questions tab. But maybe, Andrew, we could start with two first questions and then move on to the consequences. Is that okay for you?
Okay, sure. Let's do that. Yeah, okay.
Two first questions coming in. One from Mehari Tesfai. She's asking what type of a species of mint is most popular in the EU markets when processed as essential oils. And the second question is, where can I find out more about the fragrances allergens? And what are the most important things to know in terms of regulations for allergens?
Okay. Well, the species of mint, well, I mean, the ones that I know, and there could be more, the ones that I know of are the culinary uses. So, the different types of mint that are used in culinary and producing extracts from those members of the mint family, and also peppermint as well. But that also comes from the USA. But it's these like culinary mints, and I don't have the actual botanical name to hand. Maybe Andre has the answer to that to hand. I don't have that to hand. I'd have to look at that. But That's a good question. With your second question, well, there's a lot of information on the European Commission website, which is a reliable source for this, and there is you can look up fragrance allergens. You can search for that with the European Commission website, and you can download the regulation and look through that. And there are different organizations and different consulting firms, technical consulting firms, offer advice on which ones are there. But my advice to you is first read the legislation. It's a fairly straightforward document, quite clearly laid out. You search for the substances that are in your essential oil, and then you just make sure if they appear or not on that document. It does require, of course, so in the past, an essential oil was tested for 26 allergens in the GC chromatography method, but now many more have to be tested for, and you have to produce normally an allergen declaration for your customer, and that will include the percentages of these allergens that are found or are not found in your particular essential oil.
Thank you, Andrew, for these good responses.
So, okay, now we're up to 1 hour, and I'm going to, I think we've got clear that you can see that there are potential consequences, and that's why Andre and all his colleagues are working on this with other organizations. We're looking at restrictions, increasing costs, economic losses, a focus maybe looking for alternatives. But I wanted to looking at sort of the options for the way forward. Well, a lot of it is, about, in terms of the testing and the science of it, a return to risk-based assessments for essential oils that consider real-world situations, the exposure, and also look at the safe historical use of essential oils, looking at the dosage, the specific use, and not just, because it contains this particular substance, it's not safe. So, to recognize the complexity of essential oils. And of course, also to develop, safe use standards, or we already got that already with some of the fragrance allergens, but maybe that has to be looked at. But certainly, the industry is advocating more science-based policies, science based on risk assessment, and also looking at funding, these studies. So what can producers do? What can the industry do? Well, number one is to engage in advocacy and support groups like EFEO, IFEAT, and others. And you can also do that through your local association. You can. They want to also provide scientific justification for the safety. Also, in particular, highlight the socio-economic impact of this industry on hundreds of thousands of producers all around the world. And, definitely people should be preparing for compliance always. It'll be aware of what changes are coming, like the fragrance allergen regulation that's already in force. And also, join associations. And if you maybe if you're not based in Europe, you can't join EFEO, but you could probably join IFEAT, or you could join an association that may be affiliated to one of these associations. And maybe as a commercial strategy, don't forget to look at other markets beyond the EU. I mean, it's not really the idea in a way. We want to make sure that the EU is open for essential oil business, but at the same time, for your businesses, also keep an open mind as to where you should be working. For those of you in the audience, well, in a way, a little bit like EFEO, they're a business support organization, and other organizations around the world, well, support your producers, your members, to join associations internationally, to be part of the lobbying efforts, support them in the preparation of the documents they need to present to the European Union. Look at case studies on the socio-economic impact. make sure the BSO provides market information, to look at the resources of the CBI, make sure that your members are able to access those resources, and you yourself as an organization develop more international linkages with the industry, and encourage them to join sector associations. So one of the examples of what a BSO does is exactly what EFEO is doing. So I want to pass back now to Andre to tell us more about their scientific program.
Yes,
as an example of what a BSO is doing in this area.
Yes, it's one of the main topics which takes our time, efforts, resources currently. It was initiated by EFEO last year. As mentioned, the derogation we received from the CLP regulation was mainly based on the political decision, and we got it with under the condition to justify it within 5 years period, providing enough and strong scientific data that this derogation is correct. So to make this possible, we initiated this scientific project. It cannot go as a single initiative. It requires our joint forces, and we rely very much on our partners, on the global association, EFEO. We try to align positions also with the other industry associations, because simply said, for example, IFRA and IOFI, their scope is different, but they are members, in fact, are our customers. So we have a lot of common interests. So we try to work together in this, to engage together, to align positions, and to see if we can share the same interests. The meaning of these joint forces are to exchange knowledge, to exchange information, to share knowledge, and to use the expert from all possible sources, and of course to contribute about the funding of this platform, which is a quite complicated organization, meaning administration, financing, and science. So to keep it working, we need all this to gather the necessary data and to be ready to provide results to the Commission within the timeline of 2029. The target of this project is to prove by scientific information, the results, that the whole essential oil as one substance acts differently than the single constituents. So even some of them are classified as dangerous and being restricted or banned. It's not valid for the whole essential oil. As you give the example for rose oil or tea tree, this is what we need to prove, that the essential oil is one substance and it is acting differently than the single constituents in isolated environment. So the few steps which are important in this process are first to identify the available data, and then they be analyzed, then to precise and determine which studies are needed for that and what additional information and scientific data we need to obtain. It's already ongoing. Our experts from EFEO and EFEO are actively working with industry experts on that. They have weekly meetings and established a kind of roadmap which will be used as a guidance. Several oils will be studied in parallel in the main production countries, as we consider in Europe. This is we in Bulgaria, France, Spain, and Italy. So parallel mirror studies will be will be performed for the typical oils from these countries. In this process, the recommendation of the European Commission was to invite also and to involve the national authorities. So this is another point for our advocacy work, to engage them in scientific and funding process. So we need to present the results to the Commission by end of the period, and then the option is they decide that the derogation can be prolonged, which we want as an industry, or eventually if they are not sufficient, the Commission may want to come with a new legislative proposal, which is not our desired variant. So in the coming months, the industry may expect our call for contributions and support. It will go to the industry and to the national authorities, to the scientific organizations, as we really need to be united and to contribute and to support it in order to be able to finalize this process. It's quite complicated, and it cannot go just with spontaneous initiatives. That's why we went to this direction, to make this big organization, which really require a lot of our time, resources, attention, and efforts. You can visit the website of EFEO. There is special section, Protect Essentials. On the EFEO, our site, information is always available. This is the flyer which you see on the screen, short promotional flyer which we use for different events to inform the audience and to raise awareness and to call for help, for contributions and support.
Andre, about this scientific platform, are SMEs, for instance, in the possibility, if they use this platform, to have concrete answers, such as, for instance, the one of Mr. Bellomo that is coming in? He's asking if the new allergens will be listed in the EU directive by SCCNFP, so the Scientific Committee on Cosmetic Products and Non-Food. Can he have this kind of answers thanks to that platform?
I'm really not a scientific or regulatory person, but I mentioned the target of this platform is to prove that the different constituents of the essential oils are not just a sum of in the whole substance. So the oil act differently than the constituents of the oil isolated. I'm not really sure if the information, the question asked in this way, will find the answer in this platform as questioned.
I can also add there, Edward, so that information is available. There was a link in this presentation, so as soon as the presentation is uploaded to the website, the platform of CBI, then the link to that very page on is available to study all of those aspects. And whereas the platform itself may not have that level of detail, the scientific platform, the EU links are all there to study which are the allergens.
I think that's a good answer for the question of Mr. Bellomo. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, and also thanks, thanks, Andre. So just to, so you can see, there's a lot going on, yeah. With I mean, Andre has really presented that this is a lot of time and energy and investment in working through these questions that the industry has to demonstrate the safety using scientific methods. Did you want to say something else, Andre?
I think this is all from my side for now.
Super, thank you very much. Yeah, so then just to wrap up, so, you know, in a few short words, we've got an uncertain future. 5 years, or for now 4 years, isn't a very long time. It provides a breathing space, but you know, it's still open, uncertain of what happens after that. And as we've just heard, industry-wide collaboration is really essential. Advocacy is really essential, and really all of us involved in the essential oil industry, not just in Europe, yeah, but everybody needs to really, our request is to contribute to this process as best as possible, and to join organizations who are working in this effort. So thank you very much to everyone for your attention. And if there's time permitting, Edward, we can, if there are a couple more questions you'd like to put to us, then we're happy to have those questions.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes, we've been having quite a lot of questions coming in. For instance, from Lalena Randianirissen, she's asking, is there a document presenting for each type of essential oil, or if it will be impacted by the new regulations, and how? So does that kind of document exist, presenting each type of essential oil?
I don't know about the access to that. Maybe that's something that you get when you are a member of one of these associations. They would have perhaps that level of detail. Then you could ask the question, well, you know, I'm doing this. Is that oil likely to be impacted by what's happening right now in the European Union?
We don't talk for the moment, as I can answer, being not really regulatory person, but the regulation is not focused on specific essential oils. It regulates different constituents, classification of them, and their application and usage. And if your oil contains some of these constituents, yes, you can be affected in case of bad classification. And if we move really from real risk to just general hazard, for example.
Thanks, Andre.
I also have a question from Caroline Turmoil, who would like to know if there is an influential producer association of essential oils based in Africa, because she's interested in working with manufacturers from the EU, and they produce dried herbs like rosemary, mint, hibiscus. So what are your thoughts about that? Can you name a few influential producer associations?
In Africa, I have no information.
I'd say the first thing is to which country, and then maybe then to contact one of the other types of trade organizations in that country within Africa, and find out if there is an African association. You can maybe look at the pages of no, I'd say that's the best route to go through, not knowing the country that you're in, Caroline. You know, to look at that, go to a local chamber of commerce, maybe, to see who they know, who may be working in that field as an association.
If I may say, one of the benefits member can use from being member of associations like EFEO and EFEO is to be updated on regulatory and legislative information, to receive eventual support on scientific from scientific side, and then this association provides good networking opportunities during their events. So this is the way how the industry functions in general. It is not just like that, because companies, many companies in our industry, including my small company, we are member in the same time of the National Association, the European, and the Global Association. So with our annual fees, this is the way, and for some of us with the voluntary work we do, but for the most of the members, against the annual fee, they get these benefits to have access to information and to use the opportunities these associations provide.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrei. Yeah, I see it's 4:21. Maybe you can do a last few ones. For instance, there's a question from Yared Fikad. She's asking, is the application of essential oils to other areas assessed outside cosmetics?
Is it? Well, this is particularly outside of cosmetics world. It's not particularly outside of cosmetics actually, because it's to do with the substances that come under the classification, labeling, and packaging regulations. So cosmetics being a very broad, which includes obviously perfumes, includes fragrance. This is a particular concern. And for example, the tea tree case is a case where there's a potential impact on the cosmetics industry. Maybe also Andrei has an answer there as well.
Assessed depending on what is the meaning. Essential oils are assessed for all their application in food, in flavoring, in fragrances. So there are different studies depending on the target.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Maybe also a question from Kaitia. We'll see if it's too technical or not, and if it's too technical, we'll come back to him afterwards. Kindly advise how frankincense essential oil from Kenya will be impacted by these laws.
Okay, yeah, it's also a specific question. I don't know the answer to the question. My response would be to first of all to understand the composition of the frankincense essential oil, and then as it's looking at the different components of the essential oil, that would be a first starting point. I don't know whether, I mean, I'm sure that Andrei would have more information here about that.
Not specifically, haven't heard something specifically about the frankincense. Yeah, you are right. Depending on its composition and the compounds in it, it could be a starting point to see if there is, what is the risk, if any. I don't have in front of me a certificate with the compounds of the frankincense. I never worked with it. Sorry, I cannot answer more in details, but this is the way. For each oil, just start from the content.
Yeah, I think that one of the messages from our presentation today, Edward, is also that this is really we can't answer all the questions immediately. It does require some research, perhaps, but this is also our invitation to the audience to really start looking now at this. All the information is published on the different websites of the European Commission, ECHA, and all of that. And also you can get information, kind of links from the EFEAT and EFEO pages. But really it's a call to action for the producers around the world to start looking at all these aspects, the legal aspects of their product in Europe, to understand well, what is the status, or what is the potential status in the future. And of course, organizations like EFEO and EFEAT and others who are working with them, IFRA, IOFE, etc., do have all of the specialists there, the scientific specialists who can answer these questions. And of course, that comes from being a member of one of these organizations.
Well said, yeah. Well, guys, it's 4:26, so we're 10 minutes late. So I just would like to say that your input was very valuable for our focus group of SMEs, and I see it also with the enthusiasm of the questions that are coming in the questions from our audience. Our audience is still quite stable after 1.5 hours of presentation. We have 133 attendees at the moment, so that means a lot also about the quality of your presentation, Andrew and Andre. So thanks a lot for that. And so I would like to say a warm thank you to you both, and of course also a warm thank you to our audience of today. And just before we end this session, I would also like to remind our audience that we will be able to share this webinar afterwards on our website shortly. So please check out our website in the next few days, and you will see this video coming in on our YouTube platform. Andrea and Andrew, would you like to say a last few words to our audience before we close the session?
I'd like to ask Andre, yes, as our special invited guest today. I'm so happy that he was able to be with us. So Andre, please give us a few closing words.
Thank you very much. It was interesting for me and pleasure to attend. It's important. I can understand the point of view of the SMEs, because my company is in fact really small and micro company. So I'm the same position, and what we do in these associations is in fact to fight for our business. So we do it for us. Thank you for all who attended. Hope it was useful. We are available for questions, information, and anything which can be of help. Thank you for the organizers for this invitation as well.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you, Andrew. So that's
Great.
it.
Thank you very much.
For now, I hope to see you soon in one of our future webinars, of course, or country projects. And we wish you a very nice day.
Thank you very much.